Picture this. You're sitting at home, minding your own business, maybe reading a book or watching your favorite show, and suddenly your phone starts ringing. Not a notification, not a text message, an actual phone call. And in that exact moment, something inside you tightens. Your heart skips a beat, a wave of tension rushes through your body, and you stare at the screen like it's a bomb about to explode. You watch it ring once, twice, 3 times, secretly hoping it will just stop. And when it finally goes to voicemail, you feel this strange wave of relief wash over you. If this sounds familiar, congratulations, you're not alone, and you're definitely not broken. Welcome to the fascinating psychology of people who hate phone calls. Now here's the thing most people don't understand. When someone says they hate phone calls, the typical response is something like, "Oh, come on, it's just a phone call, what's the big deal?" And honestly, from the outside, it does seem a bit dramatic, doesn't it? It's just talking. Humans have been talking to each other for hundreds of thousands of years. But here's what those people miss. A phone call is not just talking. A phone call is a very specific type of social interaction that triggers a unique set of psychological responses in your brain. And for some people, those responses are genuinely overwhelming. Let me explain what actually happens in your brain when your phone rings. The moment you hear that sound, your brain has to make an instant decision. It has to shift from whatever you were doing, whatever mental state you were in, into social performance mode. And it has to do this immediately, with zero preparation time. Think about it. When someone sends you a text, you can read it, think about your response, maybe even wait a few hours if you need to. You have control. But a phone call? A phone call demands your attention right now, this second, no exceptions. This is what psychologists call synchronous communication, and it's fundamentally different from asynchronous communication like texting or email. Synchronous communication requires both people to be fully present at the same time, responding in real time, with no pause button. For people whose brains process information a little differently, or who need time to formulate their thoughts, this can feel like being thrown into the deep end of a pool without warning. But let's go deeper than that, because the hatred of phone calls isn't just about processing speed. There's something else happening here, something connected to one of the most primal fears humans possess: the fear of being judged. You see, during a phone call, you lose access to something incredibly important: visual feedback. When you're talking to someone face to face, you can see their expressions, their body language, their micro-reactions to everything you say. Your brain uses all of this information to navigate the conversation, to know when to pause, when to clarify, when to change direction. It's like driving with your eyes open. A phone call is like driving blindfolded. You're still moving, you're still navigating, but you've lost 80% of your sensory input. And your brain absolutely hates this. It starts working overtime, trying to interpret tone of voice, trying to fill in the gaps, trying to guess what the other person is thinking. This is cognitively exhausting, and it creates a constant low-level anxiety throughout the entire conversation. For some people, this anxiety is manageable. For others, it's overwhelming. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Research has shown that people who hate phone calls often have higher than average emotional intelligence. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but stay with me. People with high emotional intelligence are more attuned to social cues, more aware of other people's emotions, more sensitive to the nuances of human interaction. And because of this heightened sensitivity, the absence of visual cues during a phone call creates more anxiety, not less. Their brains are essentially searching for information that isn't there, like trying to read a book with half the pages missing. There's also a fascinating connection between phone anxiety and something called intolerance of uncertainty. This is a psychological trait where people have difficulty coping with situations that are unpredictable or ambiguous. And let's be honest, what's more unpredictable than a phone call? You don't know exactly what the person wants. You don't know how long the conversation will last. You don't know what questions they might ask or what direction the conversation might take. For someone with high intolerance of uncertainty, this ambiguity is genuinely stressful. Their brain treats the unknown elements of the call as potential threats, triggering a mild fight or flight response. And speaking of fight or flight, let's talk about introverts for a moment. Now, I want to be clear. Not everyone who hates phone calls is an introvert, and not every introvert hates phone calls. But there is significant overlap, and there's a good reason for it. Introversion isn't about being shy or antisocial. It's about how your brain processes stimulation and how you recharge your energy. Introverts tend to find social interaction, especially unexpected or intense social interaction, more draining than extroverts do. A phone call, by its very nature, is an intense form of social interaction. It demands immediate attention, immediate response, and sustained engagement with no natural breaks. For an introvert, this can feel like being forced to run a sprint when you were planning to take a leisurely walk. But here's what I find most fascinating about all of this. The hatred of phone calls isn't some new phenomenon that appeared with millennials or Generation Z. It's actually been studied since the early days of telephones. When telephones first became common in households in the early 20th century, there was widespread anxiety about using them. People felt uncomfortable talking to someone they couldn't see. They worried about proper etiquette, about being caught off guard, about the strange intimacy of having someone's voice directly in their ear, without their physical presence. Sound familiar? The difference today is that we have alternatives. We have texting, email, direct messages, voice notes, video calls. We have a whole spectrum of communication options that didn't exist before. And because we have these options, the phone call has become almost aggressive by comparison. Think about it. In a world where you could easily send a text, choosing to call someone is making a statement. It's saying, "What I have to say is important enough to demand your immediate attention." And sometimes, that demand feels intrusive. There's a concept in psychology called boundary invasion, and phone calls can trigger this feeling in some people. Your phone is with you constantly. It's in your pocket, on your nightstand, in your hand. It's become an extension of your personal space. When someone calls you, they're essentially entering that space without permission, demanding that you stop whatever you're doing and attend to them. For people who are sensitive to personal boundaries, this can feel like a violation, even if the caller means well. Now, I can imagine some of you watching this and thinking, okay, but doesn't this just mean these people need to toughen up? Isn't this just anxiety that should be overcome? And I understand that perspective. I really do. But here's the thing. Not every preference needs to be pathologized. Not every discomfort needs to be fixed. Sometimes, understanding why you feel a certain way is enough. Sometimes, knowing that your brain works a little differently is empowering, not limiting. In fact, many people who hate phone calls have developed incredible skills in written communication. They express themselves more clearly and more thoughtfully in text because they've had years of practice choosing words carefully, thinking before responding, crafting messages with intention. They tend to be excellent at asynchronous collaboration, which is increasingly valuable in our modern remote work world. What looks like a limitation from one angle often looks like a specialization from another. Let me tell you something that might change how you think about this. A study published in the journal Computers in Human Behavior found that people who prefer texting over calling often report feeling more authentic in their written communication. They feel they can express their true selves better when they have time to think. The phone call, with its demand for immediate response, can actually make some people feel less like themselves, like they're performing a version of themselves rather than being genuine. So when someone avoids phone calls, they might not be avoiding connection. They might be seeking a deeper, more authentic form of connection. And here's where I want to leave you with something important. If you're someone who hates phone calls, I want you to know that there's nothing wrong with you. Your brain is wired to process social information in a particular way, and that's okay. You're not antisocial. You're not rude. You're not broken. You're simply someone who thrives in different communication environments. The key is self-awareness, understanding your preferences, communicating them to others, and finding ways to connect that feel authentic to you. And if you're someone who loves phone calls, who picks up immediately and wonders why everyone doesn't do the same, I hope this video has given you some insight into the other side. That friend who always lets your calls go to voicemail? They're not avoiding you. They're just navigating the world with a different set of psychological settings. A little understanding goes a long way. In the end, communication is about connection, and there are many paths to that destination. Some people connect through long phone conversations. Others connect through carefully crafted messages. Neither way is superior. They're just different expressions of the same fundamental human need. The need to be understood. So the next time your phone rings and you feel that familiar wave of dread, don't be too hard on yourself. Your brain is just doing what it does. Take a breath, let it go to voicemail if you need to, and respond in whatever way feels right for you. Because at the end of the day, the best kind of communication is the kind that allows you to show up as your authentic self. Thank you for watching. If this video resonated with you, if you found yourself nodding along and thinking, "Finally, someone gets it," I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Tell me, are you a phone call person or a text message person? And if you enjoyed this exploration into the human mind, consider subscribing, because we dive deep into psychology like this every single week. Until next time, take care of yourself and remember, your brain isn't broken. It's just beautifully unique.